Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Chris Mason and Sally Nugent.
Our headlines today. The Denmark player Christian Eriksen is in a stable condition in hospital after needing life-saving heart treatment during a match in the European Championships.
News of Eriksen's improved condition, a huge relief to players and fans alike. Tournament organisers confirming the action will continue. England kick off their campaign against Croatia here at Wembley later this afternoon.
Ahead of a decision about lifting coronavirus restrictions in England, the Prime Minister urges caution with a possible delay of up to 4 weeks.
The President who came to tea. The Queen will welcome Joe Biden to Windsor this afternoon.
Sold $28 million to number 107.
A mystery bidder pays £20 million to fly into space with the boss of Amazon.
And over the next few days, we're set to see some of the hottest conditions of the year so far, but it won't be sunshine and heat for all. I'll give you all the details here on Breakfast.
Just gone 6 o'clock, morning to you. It is Sunday the 13th of June. Our top story, the Denmark midfielder Christian Eriksen is now said to be in a stable condition in hospital after collapsing during the Euro 2020 match against Finland last night.
The former Spurs player received life-saving treatment on the pitch after he fell to the ground. The game was suspended just before half-time but was later resumed, as Paddy Geary reports.
What must it have been like to be a Denmark player at this moment? Behind their protective guard, surrounded by screens, their star Christian Eriksen, who just had CPR performed on him. The crowd and the world unaware of whether he was still alive. One photo captured the ultimate relief. Eriksen left the ground stable and awake. Once in hospital, he spoke to his teammates and, less than 2 hours later, they were back on the field. You don't need to speak Danish to guess at the team talk.
We are all reminded of what the most important thing in life is. To have valuable relationships, people we're close to, our family and our friends.
Eriksen's the player the camera follows, an entertainer with Tottenham in the Premier League, then Inter Milan in Serie A. He's admired across football, and when medics rushed to him at the end of the first half, there was horror in the stadium, in wider Copenhagen and around the world. The referee, Englishman Anthony Taylor, suspended the match, and both sets of fans sung out Eriksen's name. In support, in hope. Then eventually the stadium announcer gave them the news that they'd prayed for. Eriksen was stable.
I don't care if we're going to win or lose. Christian Eriksen is awake. That's absolutely the best. And I hope the best for him and his family.
Lots of people around us were just crying, really, crying literally. Crying for 15-20 minutes, and then we found out that through the Finnish guys, we were standing next to the Finnish guys actually. So we got pictures from the Finnish guys showing that he was actually sitting upright and he was holding his own mask and with oxygen, and it was a relief for everybody.
Also watching on television was Fabrice Muamba, who himself so nearly died on the pitch while playing for Bolton against Spurs 9 years ago.
I'm watching it from home. I'm literally in tears. I'm saying, come on, man, seriously, come on, come on. And this incident has also shown how important to have a good medical care available to you could help somebody to survive a sudden cardiac arrest.
The resumed match was, unsurprisingly, subdued. It finished 1-0 to Finland, but in a tournament delayed by a pandemic, yet another reminder that this is just a game. Patrick Geary, BBC News.
Well, let's talk to our sports correspondent, John Watson, who is at Wembley for us this morning. Morning to you, John. An extraordinary, horrific moment, wasn't it, last night, going from watching a carefree game of football to that. But the tournament does carry on.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, Chris. Yes, England beginning their campaign against Croatia here this afternoon. I'm not sure whether that would have been the case had the circumstances around Christian Eriksen's condition turned out very differently. UEFA were able to confirm after he collapsed on the pitch just before half-time, not long after, that he was in hospital in a stable condition and would remain there for further examination. It was a hugely, desperately worrying situation, and what we saw play out already had an impact on events here at Wembley last night. Gareth Southgate was due to give his press conference ahead of the game here today. That was cancelled in light of what we saw play out. England and Gareth Southgate have since tweeted. They said, "We are encouraged by the update from Danish football this evening. On behalf of the FA, our players and staff, we send our very best wishes to Christian and those close to him. We pay tribute to those who went to his aid with such care to give the support he received. Our thoughts remain with Christian and his family tonight." The Scottish FA echoing that. The thoughts of all the Scottish national team this evening are with Christian Eriksen, his family and Danish football. That tweet going out last night. And the Welsh FA as well, on a very similar vein. Players and staff praying for Christian Eriksen, his family and Danish football. It was, of course, the fact that the Danish players were able to speak to Christian Eriksen, as we heard there, that prompted that request to come for the game to resume at 7:30, which it did last night. We will, of course, see England take to the pitch here later on this afternoon in their opening match, but there can be no doubt that I think what we saw play out yesterday, it has certainly put football and this tournament into perspective, hasn't it?
Absolutely. We'll talk to you throughout the morning, John. For now, thanks very much.
Now, a decision on whether to lift all of England's lockdown restrictions on the 21st of June is expected to be taken later today.
It's before the Prime Minister makes an announcement tomorrow. However, he has said that the government must be cautious as hospital admissions increase. Simon Jones reports.
A barbecue on the beach last night at the G7 summit in Cornwall. But Boris Johnson, enjoying a drink, has a lot on his mind. Whether the lifting of the remaining coronavirus restrictions in England should go ahead as scheduled on the 21st of June, with caution the watchword.
You've got to be cautious in order to deliver what we want to see, which is an irreversible roadmap. But we're looking at the data today. That, again, you've got hospitalisations up, you've got cases up. There are grounds for caution. That doesn't mean that this country hasn't made enormous progress with vaccination. Clearly, what you've got is a race between the vaccines and the virus, and the vaccines are going to win. It's just a question of the pace.
Surge testing in the London borough of Kingston to try to identify cases of the Delta variant first discovered in India. It's the rapid rise in numbers that is causing the potential rethink, which could see a delay of a month to the lockdown being declared over, with an inevitable impact on the economy. Although nightlife has returned to towns and cities, many venues are operating at far below their capacity, with food and drink having to be ordered at tables. So any further delay in the lifting of lockdown will come as a bitter blow to businesses. They were hoping that removing limits on social contact would allow pubs, clubs, theatres and cinemas to operate how they used to before the pandemic.
Not really sure about a week's time. I think it needs to be done with more thought. Obviously, this is a bit crazy. I think thought needs to go into it, but definitely people are not going to do another lockdown.
I just feel like we should just go on June 21st. Because the rates are going down, no? They're going up. I heard they were going down. Yeah, for that reason, I understand why it's getting pushed back.
The plan for what happens next is expected to be signed off later today, although it's not due to be made public until Monday. Simon Jones, BBC News.
Sir David Attenborough will warn the G7 leaders that the choices they make on climate change will be some of the most important in human history. It's as the final day of the summit in Cornwall gets underway today. The 7 world leaders are also expected to pledge to almost halve their emissions by 2030. And the Prime Minister will say he's launching a fund worth £500 million to protect the world's ocean and marine life.
The Queen will host the US President and First Lady at Windsor Castle later this afternoon as the G7 summit in Cornwall draws to a close.
Joe Biden and his wife Jill will be welcomed by a guard of honour followed by tea at the royal residence. He will be the 12th US leader the Queen has met during her reign. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell reports.
It's a busy weekend for the Queen. On Friday evening, she was in Cornwall meeting the G7 leaders and posing with them for a group photograph.
Are you supposed to be looking as if you're enjoying it?
Yes, it will definitely.
Yesterday at Windsor, she watched a scaled-down Trooping the Colour marking her 95th birthday. And it will be at Windsor Castle this afternoon that she will welcome President Biden and the First Lady. No one else in public life can have met as many US presidents as the Queen. During the nearly 70 years of her reign, she's met 12 of them. Notably, in the early 1960s, she met President John F. Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline. In the 1980s, she and President Ronald Reagan were brought together through their shared love of horses. They went riding together during the president's visit to Windsor. There appeared to be rather less affinity during the most recent presidential visit to Windsor. That was in 2018, when Donald Trump and his wife came for tea. That visit is principally remembered for the president having walked in front of the Queen as they inspected a guard of honour. But all the presidential visitors have one thing in common: a respect for a monarch who's now the world's longest-serving head of state, and who, for all her non-political role, is able in subtle ways to underpin Britain's reputation. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.